The warning alarm screamed through New Terra's central command, a piercing sound that cut through Captain Area Chen's bones like liquid nitrogen. Outside the massive transparasteel observation deck, the void of space erupted with the menacing silhouettes of Vorx warships, each vessel a testament to biological engineering that made human spacecraft look like fragile glass bubbles. Incoming transmission, Lieutenant Marcos Rodriguez called out, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that seemed to breathe and pulse with each touch. Vorx Primary Fleet Commander requesting immediate surrender. Aria's lips curled into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Surrender had never been a human strategy, not since they'd learned to transform their most fundamental weakness into their greatest strength. New Terra itself was a testament to that philosophy. Situated on a planet with 3.2 times standard gravitational pull, it was a world that would crush most biological entities. The planet's surface looked like a nightmare landscape of twisted rock formations and perpetually churning atmospheric storms. To any other species, it would be an impossible environment. To humans, it was home. Display the transmission, Aria commanded. The holographic field flickered, revealing a Vorx commander, a massive creature composed of interlocking biological armor plates and sensory tendrils that writhed with predatory intelligence. Its voice emerged as a series of clicks and subsonic vibrations that would have been unintelligible to most species. Translation protocols kicked in, and the creature's message became clear. Humanity's extinction is inevitable. Your species represents a genetic anomaly. Too fragile, too vulnerable to survive. Surrender, and we will ensure a swift termination. Lieutenant Rodriguez's hand hovered near the defensive systems. Every human knew the statistics. The Vorx had conquered over 63 distinct civilizations. Their technological and biological superiority was unquestioned across multiple galactic sectors. But they didn't understand humans. Activate Planetary Adaptive Response System, Aria said, her voice calm and clinical. The entire command center transformed. What had been a standard military installation began to shift. Molecular reconfiguration panels sliding, environmental systems realigning. Defensive infrastructures emerging from what moments ago appeared to be solid rock and metal. New Terra wasn't just a colony. It was a living, breathing, adaptive organism. The first Vorx energy weapons discharge, massive plasma cascades designed to vaporize entire continents. But as the energy struck the planet's surface, something extraordinary happened. The terrain itself seemed to absorb the massive destructive potential, its molecular structure dynamically shifting to not just deflect but fundamentally transform the incoming energy. Energy conversion at 78% efficiency, Marcos reported, a note of wonder in his voice. The planet is literally consuming their weapon systems. Aria watched as the Vorx fleet's initial assault became a cascading failure. Their most advanced weapons were being turned against them, their strategic algorithms becoming increasingly confused by a defensive system that didn't just resist. It adapted, learned, and counterattacked in ways that defied conventional warfare. The colony's defensive systems were more than technological. They were an expression of humanity's most fundamental trait, the ability to transform limitation into opportunity. Vorx ships began to fall, not through direct destruction, but through a complex series of environmental manipulations that rendered their technological superiority meaningless. Gravitational anomalies would suddenly emerge, magnetic fields would reorganize, atmospheric conditions would shift with mathematical precision. It wasn't just defense, it was a complete reimagining of conflict. "Commander," Marcos whispered, "they have no idea what's happening." And that was the point. Humanity had long ago discovered that their perceived weakness, their lack of natural armor, their soft biological composition, was actually their greatest strength. Where other species developed rigid, unchanging systems, humans had learned to become fluid, to transform, to see every limitation as a potential point of innovation. As the last Vorx ships began to disintegrate, not through weapons, but through the planet's adaptive response, Area Chen understood they had just demonstrated something far more important than military victory. They had shown the galaxy that weakness, properly understood, was the most powerful weapon of all. The first battle for New Terra was over, but humanity's true war, the war of philosophical and evolutionary transformation, was just beginning. The quantum computing laboratory looked like nothing more than a cathedral of impossible potential. Holographic interfaces danced around Dr. Marcus Rodriguez like living spirits, each projection a testament to the razor's edge between breakthrough and catastrophic failure. System integrity at 12%, the AI assistant warned, its voice a clinical whisper that did nothing to mask the immense risk of what was about to happen. Neural interface stability. Critical. Marcus didn't flinch. His fingers, leaden with neural conductive nano-interfaces, hovered above the quantum core, a machine that had driven 3 previous research teams to nervous breakdowns and 1 to complete neural collapse. The Galactic Science Consortium had declared the project impossible. Humans, they argued, simply lacked the neural complexity to interface with such advanced computational systems. They didn't understand that impossibility was just an invitation to human innovation. The quantum core before him was a marvel of technological desperation. Recovered from the wreckage of an ancient alien civilization, it represented computational power so advanced that most species considered it nothing more than an incomprehensible artifact. Its previous owners, the long-extinct Zeranak, had been a civilization of pure computational intelligence. Their technology was so complex that it had driven every other species to madness when attempting to understand it. Every other species except humans. Marcus took a deep breath. His neural implants hummed with potential, a lifetime of adaptive training culminating in this moment. Where other species saw rigid computational boundaries, humans saw fluid possibilities. Initiating neural bridge, he announced, more to himself than to the AI assistant. The first contact was like being struck by lightning made of pure information. Trillion-bit data streams crashed through his consciousness, a tsunami of computational potential that would have instantaneously obliterated any other neural system. But Marcus's brain wasn't just a biological computer. It was an adaptive network that could restructure itself faster than the data could overwhelm it. Pain wasn't the right word for what he experienced. It was a complete deconstruction and reconstruction of consciousness. Outside the laboratory, sensor arrays began to go wild. The quantum core, previously considered a dead artifact, started to pulse with an energy signature that defied known physics. Computational matrices that had been static for millennia began to reconfigure, to breathe, to live. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, Marcus's mother and the foremost expert on adaptive neural systems, watched from the observation deck. Her hands gripped the railing, a mixture of maternal terror and scientific excitement etched across her face. Neural synchronization at 37%, the AI reported, its tone shifting from clinical to something resembling awe. Quantum core showing unprecedented activation patterns. Marcus's body remained perfectly still, but his consciousness was expanding. He wasn't just interfacing with the quantum core, he was becoming something else entirely. The computational artifact was learning from him just as rapidly as he was learning from it. Decades of human research into neural plasticity, into the brain's capacity for radical transformation, had prepared him for this moment. Where other species developed specialized neural networks, humans had evolved something far more dangerous: the ability to become whatever the moment required. The laboratory's environmental systems began to respond to the neural interface. Holographic projections shifted and danced, no longer bound by pre-programmed parameters, but responding to the fluid computational dialogue happening between Marcus and the quantum core. Neural synchronization at 62%, the AI announced. Warning: system parameters no longer predictable. Elena leaned forward. This was the moment of truth, the point where every previous attempt had failed catastrophically. The quantum core was more than a computer. It was a repository of computational knowledge from a civilization that had transcended biological existence millennia ago. and Marcus was rewriting its entire operational framework. Suddenly, the quantum core's energy signature exploded across multiple computational spectrums. It wasn't just activated, it was alive in a way no technological system had ever been before. The information flow reversed, with the ancient artifact learning from the human neural system as much as Marcus was learning from it. Neural synchronization complete, the AI reported, its voice now holding something remarkably close to excitement. Computational potential. Unlimited. When Marcus finally opened his eyes, the world was fundamentally different. He hadn't just interfaced with an alien computational system. He had transformed it, and in the process, demonstrated humanity's most extraordinary capability. The ability to turn the impossible into the inevitable. The Galactic Concordance Chamber was a monument to intimidation. Massive pillars of crystalline bioarchitecture rose around a circular negotiation platform, designed to make smaller species feel insignificant. The Shalera delegation occupied the most prominent positions, serpentine entities standing nearly 3 meters tall, their scaled bodies bristling with bioluminescent threat displays that had broken lesser civilizations before negotiations even began. Ambassador Kai Okoi stood alone at the human delegation's platform. To the assembled galactic representatives, he looked painfully vulnerable. Short, with skin that seemed almost translucent compared to the armored beings surrounding him, dressed in a simple diplomatic envoy suit that offered no apparent protection. The Shalera primary negotiator, Sub-Chancellor Vexnar, uncoiled its massive form, sensory tendrils rippling with barely contained contempt. Its translation matrix carried a tone of pure condescension. The human delegation will hear the Concordance's unanimous decision, Vexnar announced. Your species is to be classified as a protectorate civilization. Your interstellar exploration rights are to be permanently restricted. In the observation galleries, representatives from 63 different species watched with a mixture of pity and anticipation. Every previous species subjected to such a proclamation had either surrendered or been systematically dismantled. Kai Okoi smiled. It was not the smile of someone about to be defeated. It was the smile of someone who had already won. Before we discuss restrictions, Kai began, his voice calm and precisely modulated. I'd like to present some data our team has compiled. With a subtle gesture, a holographic display erupted around the negotiation chamber, but this was no ordinary presentation. The data visualization was alive, shifting, adapting, revealing layers of information that seemed to breathe and pulse with intelligent design. The first layer showed diplomatic interaction records between species over the past millennium. Where other presentations would use static graphs, this one dynamically reconfigured, showing not just historical data, but predictive potential of future interactions. Vexnar's sensory tendrils froze. The visualization began to demonstrate how seemingly minor diplomatic decisions had cascading consequences across entire galactic sectors. Trade routes that collapsed, conflict zones that emerged from single miscalculated interactions, entire civilizations that rose or fell based on nuanced communication strategies. What you're seeing, Kai explained, is a comprehensive model of galactic diplomatic interaction. Not just a record, but a living predictive matrix. The Concordance Chamber went silent. The human delegation had not just presented data. They had demonstrated a level of analytical capability that made the most advanced alien diplomatic systems look like children's guessing games. Each species representation saw something different in the display. The silicon-based Krelix saw intricate computational pathways. The empathic Shireen perceived emotional resonance matrices. The hive mind Urtok recognized complex systemic interactions. But what they all recognized was that humans had developed something unprecedented. A diplomatic technology that could predict, adapt, and potentially redirect entire civilizational trajectories. Vexnar's threat displays began to retract. The intimidation tactics that had crushed countless civilizations were rendered utterly ineffective. This is impossible, the Shalera sub-chancellor muttered, its translation matrix carrying a note of genuine fear. Kai's smile never wavered. Impossible is just a word used by those who lack the imagination to see potential. The presentation continued, peeling back layer after layer of diplomatic complexity. It wasn't just showing data. It was demonstrating how human analytical capabilities could transform conflict into opportunity, how perceived weakness could become the most powerful negotiation tool in existence. By the presentation's end, the proposed restrictions had vanished. Instead, multiple species were requesting collaborative research into human diplomatic modeling. The Concordance Chamber had just witnessed something extraordinary. A physically vulnerable species had just demonstrated that true power wasn't about physical strength, but about the capacity to understand, predict, and ultimately shape complex systemic interactions. As the session concluded, Ambassador Kai Okoi walked out, looking exactly the same as when he entered. But everything had changed. Humanity had just rewritten the rules of galactic diplomacy. The quarantine zone stretched across 3 star systems, a vast region of space marked by absolute biological isolation. Massive energy barriers pulsed with containment fields so powerful they could atomize anything attempting to cross their boundaries. At the center of this cosmic dead zone, a pandemic raged, a genetic nightmare that had already consumed 17 distinct alien civilizations. Dr. Layla Khan stood at the observation deck of the Medical Research Station Horizon, her dark eyes scanning holographic displays that told a story of impending galactic extinction. The resonance plague, as it had been named, was unlike anything documented in known medical archives. It didn't just kill, it rewrote biological systems at their most fundamental level, turning living organisms into something neither alive nor dead. Infection rate is exponential, her primary AI assistant reported. Current projections showed total galactic contamination within 72 standard solar cycles. Layla's fingers danced across molecular simulation interfaces, where other species saw an impossible medical challenge. She saw an opportunity for radical transformation. The medical community had tried everything: targeted viral suppressants, genetic firewall technologies, complete species quarantine. Nothing worked. The resonance plague moved like a living intelligence, adapting faster than any medical intervention could track. Most species were preparing for extinction. Humanity was preparing to redefine survival. Initiate symbiosis protocol, Layla commanded. The research station hummed to life, but this was no ordinary medical intervention. The symbiosis protocol was less a treatment and more a complete biological reimagining. Traditional medical approaches saw disease as an enemy to be destroyed. The human approach was fundamentally different: to understand, to integrate, to transform. Holographic displays showed molecular simulations that defied conventional medical understanding. Where other species saw the resonance plague as a destructive force, Layla's team was mapping its potential. Every mutation, every genetic restructuring became a potential pathway to survival. The first test subject was a Krellic scientist, a silicon-based life form that had been hours away from total systemic collapse. Standard medical protocols would have meant certain death. The symbiosis protocol offered something else entirely. As the treatment began, the observation deck went silent. The medical team watched as something extraordinary happened. The resonance plague didn't just stop. It was being rewritten. Molecular structures began to shift, not through destruction, but through a complex dance of biological integration. The plague's genetic matrix was being understood, redirected, transformed into something that could coexist with the host organism. Systemic stabilization at 47%, the AI reported, its voice carrying a note of what could only be described as wonder. The Krellic scientist, who moments ago had been dying, began to change. But this wasn't death. This was evolution in real time. Biological systems that had been on the brink of total collapse were being rebuilt, reimagined, given a completely new potential for existence. Layla understood something profound. The resonance plague wasn't a threat. It was an opportunity. Other species saw biological challenges as something to be fought. Humans saw them as something to be understood, integrated, transformed. Hours turned into days. The medical team worked with a combination of technological precision and something that almost resembled empathy. They weren't just treating a disease. They were engaging in a dialogue with the fundamental nature of biological existence. By the time the first full treatment cycle completed, the Krellick scientist was more than healed. It had been transformed. The Galactic Medical Consortium would later debate what had happened. Some would call it a miracle. Others would argue it was the most advanced medical intervention in galactic history. Layla Khan knew the truth. It was neither miracle nor medical breakthrough. It was simply humans doing what they had always done, turning what other species saw as a fundamental weakness into the most powerful form of strength imaginable. The symbiosis protocol was more than a medical treatment. It was a statement about the nature of survival itself. Humanity had just shown the galaxy that adaptation wasn't about resistance. It was about transformation. The void between star systems erupted in silent violence. Dominion battle formations stretched across 16 light-years, a metallic constellation of destruction designed to crush humanity once and for all. 12,000 warships, each a kilometer of armored perfection, powered by technologies that had obliterated civilizations for millennia. Massive energy projectors capable of shattering planets, quantum cascade weaponry that could dissolve molecular structures, shields that could deflect entire stellar radiation bursts. And at the center of this apocalyptic armada, the flagship of Supreme Executor Kraax, a being who had personally overseen the destruction of 47 sentient civilizations. Initiate total planetary annihilation protocols, Kraax commanded, its multi-layered consciousness spreading across multiple computational matrices. Humanity will be erased. Captain Area Chen watched from the bridge of the UES Adaptive Response, a vessel that looked almost fragile compared to the massive Dominion warships. Where other species built ships as fortresses, humans designed living systems of computational potential. Incoming primary assault wave. Lieutenant Marcos Rodriguez reported, his hands dancing across interfaces that seemed to breathe and pulse with adaptive potential. Quantum cascade weapons charging. Estimated impact in 47 seconds. The human fleet didn't look like a fleet at all. Compared to the massive angular Dominion vessels, the human ships appeared almost organic, their surfaces shifting, molecular structures dynamically reconfiguring even as the first weapons discharge. The initial assault should have been apocalyptic. It wasn't. The quantum cascade weapons, designed to dissolve molecular structures at their most fundamental level, struck human vessels. But instead of destruction, something extraordinary happened. The ships didn't just absorb the energy. They transformed it. Molecular structures that should have been obliterated began to dance, to reconfigure, to literally reshape themselves around the incoming destructive potential. Energy conversion at 82%. Marcos reported, a note of wonder in his voice. Weapon systems are being integrated, not destroyed. Supreme Executor Kraax watched in growing horror as its most advanced weaponry was being turned into something else entirely. The human vessels weren't just surviving. They were learning, adapting, transforming the very nature of conflict itself. One by one, Dominion ships found their most advanced weapon systems being repurposed. Quantum cascade projections became defensive matrices. Molecular disruptors transformed into computational amplifiers. The most sophisticated destruction technology in the galaxy was being rewritten by a species that saw limitations as opportunities. This is impossible. Kraax's computational matrices began to fracture. The battle algorithms, developed over centuries of galactic conquest, were becoming increasingly unstable. Area Chen's voice cut through the communication channels with surgical precision. Impossible is just a failure of imagination. The human response wasn't about direct confrontation. It was a complete reimagining of warfare itself, where other species saw conflict as a zero-sum game of destruction. Humans saw it as a complex adaptive system to be understood and transformed. Dominion ships began to fall, not through direct weapon impacts, but through a series of computational and molecular manipulations that rendered their technological superiority meaningless. Gravitational anomalies would suddenly emerge. Quantum entanglement would cause entire battle groups to become momentarily disconnected from normal spacetime. It wasn't just defense. It was a complete deconstruction of the concept of conflict. Dominion fleet losing cohesion, Marcos reported. Their computational matrices are becoming increasingly unstable. By the battle's conclusion, not a single human vessel had been destroyed. The Dominion fleet, considered the most advanced military force in galactic history, had been systematically transformed, its own technologies turned against it. Supreme Executor Cryax's final transmission was a mixture of terror and grudging respect. "What are you?" Area Chen's response was simple and profound. "We are humans, and we turn weakness into our most powerful weapon." The Galactic Dominion had come to destroy humanity. Instead, they had become a demonstration of humanity's most extraordinary capability, the ability to transform any challenge into an opportunity for growth. Warfare would never be the same again. The Grand Sinological Auditorium stretched across 3 connecting planetary platforms, an architectural marvel designed to host representatives from over 200 sentient species. Today, it would become ground zero for a philosophical revolution that would reshape galactic understanding. Dr. Sofia Rodriguez stepped onto the central podium, her presence both unassuming and electric. She was small by galactic standards, barely 2 meters tall, with skin that seemed almost translucent compared to the armored and bio-enhanced beings surrounding her. To most species, she would have appeared vulnerable. To those who understood humanity, she represented something far more dangerous. Evolutionary potential is not defined by physical strength, Sofia began, her voice carried by translation matrices that captured not just words, but nuanced emotional undertones. It is defined by the capacity to transform limitation into opportunity. Holographic displays erupted around her, living visualizations that seemed to breathe and pulse with intelligent design. Where other scientific presentations used static data points, this was a dynamic narrative of evolutionary potential. The displays showed humanity's journey, a species that by all conventional metrics should have gone extinct multiple times over. Physically weak, environmentally vulnerable, technologically primitive by galactic standards. Yet somehow, they had not just survived but become a transformative force that was reshaping fundamental understanding of intelligence and adaptation. Representatives from the silicon-based Krelix watched with computational intensity. The empathic Shireen perceived emotional resonance matrices. The hive mind Urtak recognized complex systemic interactions. Sophia's presentation wasn't just a scientific lecture. It was a complete philosophical deconstruction of evolutionary theory. "Weakness is not a limitation," she continued. "It is an invitation to innovation." The holographic displays began to show a comprehensive map of human technological and societal development. Each breakthrough was displayed not as a linear progression, but as a complex adaptive network. Where other species developed specialized capabilities, humans had created a civilization of perpetual transformation. The medical breakthrough with the resonance plague, the diplomatic rewriting of galactic interaction models, the military adaptation that neutralized the Dominion's invasion, the neural computational interface that had transformed quantum technology. Each example was a thread in a larger tapestry of evolutionary potential. Most species seek to eliminate weakness, Sofia explained. Humans seek to understand it, to integrate it, to transform it into our most powerful tool. The Galactic Scientific Consortium had expected a standard academic presentation. Instead, they were witnessing a fundamental reimagining of what intelligence could mean. Biological systems that other species saw as fixed, humans saw as fluid. Technological challenges that seemed insurmountable became opportunities for radical redesign. Diplomatic and military confrontations were transformed into complex adaptive interactions. As the presentation continued, something extraordinary happened. The very structure of the holographic displays began to change, becoming a living demonstration of the principles Sophia was describing. Data points would shift, reconfigure, reveal hidden connections that were invisible moments before. Vulnerability is not weakness, she concluded. It is the most sophisticated form of strength imaginable. The final visualization was a comprehensive model of human potential, not as a fixed point, but as a continuously expanding sphere of possibility. It wasn't just a scientific model. It was a living testament to humanity's extraordinary capacity for transformation. When the presentation concluded, the auditorium was silent. Not out of respect, but out of a collective recognition that something fundamental had changed. The Galactic Scientific Consortium had come expecting a standard academic lecture. They left with their understanding of evolution, intelligence, and potential completely rewritten. Dr. Sofia Rodriguez had done more than present a scientific theory. She had demonstrated a new way of understanding existence itself. Humanity had just turned its most fundamental perceived weakness, its vulnerability, into the most powerful philosophical and evolutionary strategy in galactic history. The Adaptive Potential Matrix facility looked nothing like a traditional research center. Suspended between three quantum-stabilized planetary platforms, it was a living testament to humanity's most radical technological achievement. Massive energy conduits pulsed with potential, not like mechanical systems, but like circulatory networks of pure possibility. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, now the senior scientific advisor to human exploration, watched as the first public demonstration of the adaptive potential matrix began. Her daughter Sophia and grandson Marcus stood beside her, 3 generations of scientists who had transformed humanity's understanding of technological potential. Initiating primary systems, the central AI announced, its voice a complex harmonic that seemed to resonate with multiple dimensional potentials. The first volunteer stepped forward. Dr. Kai Chen, a veteran diplomat, military strategist, and medical researcher, represented the culmination of human adaptive potential. Where other species saw specialization as strength, humans had developed something entirely different. The adaptive potential matrix was more than a technological enhancement. It was a complete reimagining of biological and technological existence. Holographic interfaces erupted around Kai, not as external systems, but as living extensions of his own potential. The initial scan began, a process that would have been fatal or destructive for any other species. But humans didn't see limitations. They saw opportunities. Molecular structures began to shift, not through external manipulation, but through a dialogue between biological potential and technological innovation. Kai's neural networks expanded, reconfiguring not just his cognitive capabilities, but his entire understanding of existence. Adaptive integration at 27%, the AI reported, its voice carrying a note of what could only be described as wonder. Most species would have seen this as a technological upgrade. Humans understood it as a conversation between biological potential and technological possibility. Kai's body began to change. But this wasn't mutation. This was transformation. Technological interfaces didn't just connect to his biological systems. They became an integrated part of his existence. Computational potential merged with neural networks in a dance of pure potential. Fascinating, Kai murmured, his voice a complex harmonic that suggested he was experiencing reality on multiple simultaneous levels. The observation deck fell silent. Representatives from multiple alien species watched in a mixture of terror and profound respect. Where they saw a human undergoing technological enhancement, something far more profound was happening. Humanity was demonstrating that the line between biological and technological existence was far more fluid than anyone had imagined. Adaptive interfaces began to emerge from Kai's skin, not as mechanical additions, but as living, responsive systems that could reconfigure instantaneously. A computational interface would become a medical diagnostic tool. A defensive matrix would transform into a communication network. Adaptive potential reaching quantum integration, the AI reported. The demonstration was more than a technological breakthrough. It was a philosophical statement about the nature of existence itself. Humans didn't see technology as something external to be used. They saw it as a living, adaptive extension of potential. By the demonstration's conclusion, Kai was something more than human. But he wasn't a cyborg or a technological construct. He was a living demonstration of humanity's most extraordinary capability. The ability to transform, to adapt, to become something entirely new while maintaining the core of what made him human. Elena Rodriguez watched with a mixture of maternal pride and scientific excitement. This was more than a technological achievement. This was the next stage of human evolution. Adaptive potential matrix stabilized. The AI announced. Subject demonstrating complete systemic integration. Kai stepped forward, his movement a complex dance of biological and technological potential. He wasn't just enhanced. He was transformed. The alien representatives had come expecting to see a technological demonstration. They were witnessing the redefinition of what it meant to be alive. Humanity had done it again. They had taken what other species saw as a fundamental limitation, the vulnerability of biological existence, and turned it into the most powerful form of potential imaginable. The age of human transcendence had begun. The quantum anomaly hung in space like an impossible wound in reality, a region where known physical laws seemed to dissolve and reform with each passing moment. Conventional scientific understanding suggested it was unnavigable, unknowable, a cosmic barrier that marked the absolute limit of exploration. Humanity saw it as an invitation. The UES Horizon, a vessel that was more living system than traditional spacecraft, approached the anomaly. Captain Arya Chen, Dr. Layla Khan, and Dr. Marcus Rodriguez stood on the bridge, the culmination of generations of human potential. Quantum instability increasing, the ship's AI reported. Structural integrity protocols are becoming increasingly unpredictable. Where any other species would have retreated, humans leaned forward. The anomaly was more than a scientific challenge. It was the ultimate test of humanity's core philosophical principle, that limitation was nothing more than an opportunity for transformation. Massive energy cascades erupted around the horizon. Dimensional boundaries flickered and warped. Any conventional vessel would have been torn apart instantaneously. But the human ship wasn't conventional. Its molecular structure was a living, adaptive system that could reconfigure faster than the anomaly could destabilize it. Adaptive resonance at 63%. Marcus reported, his neural interfaces dancing with computational potential. We're not just surviving. We're understanding. Layla watched the dimensional interactions with a medical researcher's precision. Where others saw chaos, she perceived a complex biological dialogue. The anomaly wasn't a barrier. It was a conversation waiting to be understood. Arya Chen's hands moved across interfaces that seemed to breathe with intelligent potential. She wasn't navigating the ship. She was engaging with it, her consciousness merging with the vessel's adaptive systems. We're more than observers, she murmured. We're participants. The quantum anomaly began to respond, not with destruction, but with a complex series of interactions that suggested something profound. This wasn't just a region of space. It was a living system of potential, waiting for something capable of truly understanding it. Holographic displays erupted around the bridge, showing interactions that defied conventional dimensional understanding. Quantum potentials danced, revealing layers of reality that had always existed but never been perceived. Dimensional integration increasing, the AI reported. Its voice carried something remarkably close to excitement. Humanity had approached the anomaly with something far more powerful than advanced technology. They'd brought a philosophical approach that saw every challenge as an opportunity for transformation. The ship didn't just enter the anomaly. It began to dialogue with it. Molecular structures shifted. Dimensional boundaries became fluid. The line between the vessel, its crew, and the anomaly itself began to blur. We're not exploring, Marcus said, his consciousness expanding beyond traditional biological limitations. We're becoming. The Galactic observation platforms. Massive computational systems spread across multiple star systems, watched in a mixture of terror and profound respect. Humanity was doing something no species had ever attempted. They weren't trying to conquer the unknown. They were trying to understand it, to become part of it. Layers of reality began to peel back, not through destruction, but through a complex adaptive interaction that suggested the anomaly itself was learning, changing, responding to human potential. Dimensional integration complete, the AI announced. But complete wasn't the right word. This was a beginning. When the interactions concluded, the UES horizon emerged changed, but it wasn't damage, it was transformation. Captain Chen, Dr. Khan, and Dr. Rodriguez were no longer just individuals. They were living demonstrations of humanity's most extraordinary capability. The ability to turn any limitation into a pathway of unlimited potential. The quantum anomaly had been more than a scientific challenge. It had been an invitation to reimagine the very nature of existence, and humanity had accepted. The message transmitted back to the galactic observation platforms was simple yet profound. Limitation is just an invitation to become something more. Humanity had done more than explore a quantum anomaly. They had demonstrated that the only true limitation is the inability to see potential where others see only barriers. The age of human potential had transcended exploration. It had become transformation itself.